Welcome back to Simplifying the State, the podcast where we break down politics so you don't have to scroll through the 50 notifications your news app sends you every 5 minutes. As always, I'm Adam Watson.
And I'm Nicholas Perrin.
Alright, before we begin, if you haven't already, it would mean a lot if you took a minute to click the 5-star rating on your podcast app, leave a review, and make sure you are subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if you are enjoying this podcast, please share it with a friend, because if you like it, they might like it too. Okay, so Nicholas, what do Kevin McCarthy, Paul Ryan, and Mike Johnson all have in common?
Do they all have letters in their names?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
But the all right. But the answer that I was looking for was they are either former or current speakers of the House of Representatives from the Republican Party. And that kind of brings us to what we're going to be talking about today, which is kind of what future the Republican Party, what direction they might take, kind of what the future might have in store for them. Both for the 26 midterms and the 28 presidential election, both post-Trump and post-Big Beautiful Bill. So the context for the Big Beautiful Bill is basically it is the big piece of legislation that Trump has been trying to push through the Congress. 2 days ago rather, the Senate voted yes on it. It was Vice President Vance broke the tie. All Democrats voted against it. 3 Republicans joined them in voting against it. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, Senator Susan Collins from Maine, and then Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina. One unexpected vote, however, was from Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. She was a possible no vote, but it seems that the leadership managed to win her over. This was a surprise, mainly because she has been a vocal critic of President Trump for the majority of for virtually all of his second term and also parts of his first term. The Democrats were hoping she might be another no vote, which would put it at 51, meaning the bill would not have passed. But it did. It is now in the House of Representatives, where it is currently being debated. And it looks like Speaker Johnson is going to force a vote tonight. That's unclear how it will go. The Freedom Caucus, the far-right group of House reps, it says they will not support it. Speaker Johnson seems to be calling their bluff. We'll see how that plays out. But it seems like the majority of Americans are not in favor of this legislation, just based on a few opinion polls. The PAC, 55% of Americans are against this. Fox, 59% are against it. Washington Post Ipsos, 42% are against it. AFF, 4% are against it. And Pew, 49% are against it. So it does not seem to have a wide swath of support, even in a poll where it does not have a super high opposition rating. It does not have a high approval rating. It has like 29% or something like that in the Quinnipiac poll. 29% supported, 20% did not offer an opinion. Nicholas, what do you think the fallout from this bill might be? Obviously, it has a lot of things in it, the majority of which, the main parts of it, though, that people are concerned about are the fact that as a result, it looks like that 11 million people could be kicked off of their healthcare. That was from a Congressional Budget Office survey/estimate. It would also kick people off food stamps and also Medicare. So, Nicholas, what do you think the fallout for the Republicans from this could be?
Well, a lot of things could happen. A lot of people, like most of the U.S. population, healthcare and severely limiting it and making it much harder to get a hold of for a lot of people is not going to bode well for most of the population. And you also didn't mention the fact that it projects to put an extra $3 trillion onto the national debt, I think, over the course of a few years.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, a lot of fiscally conservative people and just ordinary Americans who are worried about the looming national debt is going to have a pretty big effect on. And it's going to, that in particular is going to continue to be on people's minds, I believe, throughout the presidency. I'm not sure how much that'll have an effect in the long term, but definitely in the short term, I feel it'll really, I don't want to say tarnish, but it'll limit what the Republican Party can do in terms of more unpopular things, I guess.
Right, so they'll be expending a lot of their political capita on this.
Yeah.
So I think it might not hurt them a lot in the 28 presidential race. I mean, this country does not have a super long memory when it comes to stuff like this. It's possible, but it's not super likely. I'm not sure that it'll be at the forefront of the Democrats' attacks on the Republicans about this. But in the 26 midterms, I think it'll be a much more salient issue given its kind of timeliness. So right now, obviously, every house seat is up for re-election in 26. Right now, it looks like the Democrats are projected to most likely take back control of the House. The Republicans only have a 3-seat majority, and typically the party of the incumbent president does not do well in the midterms. There were varying degrees of how poorly they do, but if they lose 4 seats and the Democrats can hold on to all their House seats, then the Democrats will then have a majority in the House of Representatives. The Senate, though, is a trickier thing. So there are only like maybe 4 or 5 swing states. That is Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, Maine. Those are the definite swing states. And then depending upon who you ask, states like Alaska, Ohio, Iowa, and Nebraska are possibly in play, although it will depend very heavily on the popularity of the Republicans and also the candidates that are run there. So obviously the Democrats face a pretty uphill battle here, but the majority of seats up for re-election are in safe Republican states like Idaho, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, stuff like that. Nicholas, what do you think about Democrats' chances of taking back both the House and the Senate next midterm?
I mean, I think it'd be possible, but can you remind me what are the number difference in the both congressional areas?
You mean like the majorities for the?
Yeah.
So in the Senate, the Republicans have a 53-seat majority. In the House, I think they have a 219 something majority.
Yeah, so in the Senate, a 3-seat majority is going to be very hard to break. I mean, I'm not entirely sure which seats would be up for grabs in the 2026 midterms, but yeah, I mean, a 3-seat majority would be pretty hard to break regardless. In the House, it'd be a lot more manageable since, like you said, it's only 1 to 2 seat majority. So I think it might be fairly likely that the Democrats will be able to break the trifecta, but completely take back both houses, I'm not entirely sure.
Right. Yeah. So I think the Senate seats that are currently in play, so you have Michigan and Georgia, where the Democrats will be on defense. Although Georgia, John Ossoff, who's the current senator, he's fairly popular there. Brian Kemp, who's the current governor of Georgia, said he would not run, which I think would have been I think that might have been the end of the Senate race. He's an extremely popular governor, both amongst Democrats and Republicans. And then Michigan, the current senator is retiring. So a battleground state like Michigan plus retiring senator means it will most likely be a very competitive race. The seats where I think the Democrats are most likely to pick up seats are North Carolina and then also Maine. North Carolina, the current Senator Tom Tillis, Republican, is retiring. He announced that a couple days ago. North Carolina was a battleground state, so I think the Democrats have a chance there. They've also shown that they can win statewide races there, like they did with the governorship in 2024. And also Maine. Maine is a bit of a curiosity, mainly because right now they have a Republican Senator, Susan Collins. So she won re-election in 2020, but their second senator, Angus King, is an independent. So it's a bit of an interesting state, although they have voted Democrat in the presidential elections, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I think Susan Collins has made some votes that will most likely be very unpopular in Maine. She voted against this bill, which I think would have been good ammunition for the Democrats to use against her in 2026. But I think even without that, there's still a good amount they can use against her. But we'll have to see. I think that will be one of the most interesting races to watch. Other states that could be up for grabs, like I said, Alaska, Ohio, Iowa, and Nebraska. So Iowa, the senator currently up for re-election is Joni Ernst. Now, she made national headlines when we talked about this on one of our previous episodes. She was the "We're all gonna die" lady. You remember that with the healthcare?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that was her. It didn't really go over well in Iowa, so that might make her unpopular to the constituents. Plus, she voted for this bill, which again unpopular. Iowa has a non-small percent of their population on the programs like Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps. So that'll be interesting to watch. Ohio, there's currently uh, a someone was appointed to fill J.D. Vance's Senate seat when he resigned to be vice president. The Democrat who lost in 2024 lost by a very small amount, so it's possible if the Democrats run the right candidate, they could win. And then Nebraska, Dan Osborne is running again as an independent. Did not come super far away from winning it in 2024, and I think the midterm electorate will be most likely more favorable to Democrats. And then Alaska's tricky because they're not a super red state, but they've always been just red enough to be likely Republican when it comes to the presidential or the Senate races. You know, their senator voted for this bill, which they could use against him for that. But overall, I think it'll be a very interesting 2026 midterm season, just kind of looking at the Senate map. So, Nicholas, do you have any thoughts on the Senate seats that we talked about?
Okay, so yeah, I think after hearing that, I think it is more possible for the Democrats to at least, like, they'll probably lessen the majority in the Senate, no doubt. But,
Right.
like, bringing it back to, like, a 50-50 or even, like, a slight majority, I'm not sure about that. I mean, based on Alaska's voting history, like, even for a very popular candidate, like Democratic candidate like Barack Obama, Alaska was never really close to voting for Barack Obama in either presidential election. So I'm not really sure if they would go blue in this one for the Senate. But I mean, depending on the popularity of their senator, I am slightly doubtful that they would vote Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their presidential election history, they weren't super close when it came to voting for the Democrats. But then I think if you look at their midterm voting history when it comes to their Senate races, their governorships, their House races, I think then they had Alaska only has one House rep. Their Alaska rep at large was a Democrat not a few years ago. So it's been proven that Democrats can win a statewide election in Alaska. I think it'll be tough for them to do it next year, but I think if they run the right candidate and the Republican Party is unpopular enough, I think they could have a chance at flipping it. But, that's maybe just a little optimism on my part. Looking ahead then to the presidential election, since we were talking about it, when it comes to the candidates that might run, the first person to come to mind is J.D. Vance. Obviously, he is the vice president currently. Many have said the Republicans are possibly looking to him as a successor. However, here's where things get tricky. So Trump has several times sort of jokingly said he's going to run for a third term. At least that's what he said. It's jokingly. But, he is then also sometimes more seriously suggested running for a third term. Clearly, there are a lot of his supporters who want him to run for a third term. But when you get to the constitutionality of it, he cannot. I mean, the amendment, which is nicknamed the Roosevelt Amendment, basically says that no president can have more than 2 terms after Roosevelt served 4 consecutive terms, which was unprecedented.
Like 3.25, but yeah.
3.25. He won 4, served 3.25, yada yada. But yeah, J.D. Vance is kind of being, at least by some Republicans, being kind of bred as the heir. But there was a quote from Trump basically where he said he did not see him as his successor. Trump saying he doesn't see J.D. Vance as a successor, mixed with the fact that there are no really other candidates that are being bred as a successor, kind of then leaves the Republicans as having a little bit of a 2028 problem, and that is, who do they get to fill the void that will be left by Trump? I mean, whether you like him or you don't like him, there is no doubt that Trump is one of the most, quite frankly, dynamic and charismatic candidates that we've seen. He has a very, I don't even know how to, it's a very impressive way to connect with voters that very few political candidates can replicate. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he has an ability to connect with voters, and so that's pretty hard to kind of replicate with other candidates, especially with J.D. Vance, who is much less charismatic than Donald Trump. So looking at some polls that were taken, J.D. Vance is at 45%. Then you have Donald Trump Jr. at 19.5%, Marco Rubio at 9.6%, Ron DeSantis at 9%, RFK at 4.8%, Nikki Haley at 4.1%, Chris Christie at 4%. And then additional candidates who got below 4% are Vivek Ramaswamy, Carrie Lake, Tim Scott, Kristi Noem, Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott, Tulsi Gabbard, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Nicholas, what do you think about that potential list of candidates?
Well, first off, I would like to comment on something you said. You
Oh
said
yeah,
that
go ahead.
Trump didn't see like JD Vance as a successor. From what I heard, it was more like it's too early for him to name a successor, is how he worded it. But yeah,
Read something different then.
yeah, what Trump has said so far is that he's named Marco Rubio and JD Vance as potential candidates. He said everyone in his cabinet is like amazing and potential candidates, but he didn't really put them by name. So I think the main candidates that he has in mind at least are JD Vance and Marco Rubio. The other ones like Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, even like Donald Trump Jr., even though like no one's really talked about like endorsing him, thinking he's a good idea, are like potential candidates that could have some steam behind them. But like ultimately, I feel like they'll be out of the picture, at least like the Ramaswamy, because like Doge has not like he immediately pulled out of Doge and
He's also running for governor of Ohio, so I'm not sure if he.
yeah. So he's probably not gonna try anything like that. So most likely, I would say JD Vance would run and probably be the best, most popular candidate by 2028. I mean, Marco Rubio was also there, although a lot of people see him as unfit for the job and a little too criticizing of Trump, which was kind of funny considering JD Vance's history, but
Yeah. Right. So kind of just running through all the candidates who are getting 4% or above. I just want to run through the negatives and positives here. JD Vance, positives, he's got very high name ID, obviously being the sitting vice president. Possible Trump endorsement, depending upon how that goes. I'm not sure if you'll get that. Negatives, though, I think this will go for every one of the candidates, and that is that they are not Trump. And Trump was able to pull together a very kind of coalition that you would normally not see. And he was able to pull that together. And then I think it would be very difficult for other Republican candidates to keep that coalition together. And I think all of them do not have the level of charisma that Trump has and do not have his ability to connect with voters like he does. Trump Jr., he's got the Trump name behind him, but he is very inexperienced when it comes to politics. Like I said, I think the only real positive in his direction is the Trump name, which many of the diehard MAGA voters might like and might support him for that name. But I mean, I don't see him getting close enough to being the nominee. Marco Rubio, he ran for president in 2016. He did not win the primary. He got a lot of attacks from Trump, nicknames and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that would possibly come back to haunt him again. Ron DeSantis, he tried to run in 24, did not go well. Trump attacked him pretty heavily, so I'm not sure he will be viewed favorably by the MAGA crowd. Same issue with Nikki Haley, ran in 24, did not go well. I mean, she got farther than all the others, but ultimately she did not win the primary, obviously. Faced a lot of attacks from Trump. Like I said, issues probably with the MAGA crowd. Chris Christie, this would be like his third run for president. I don't even think he would run. Robert Kennedy, I think many people will view him as being too Democrat. He also has the Kennedy name, which might hurt him in more diehard Republican circles. He's also been getting a little bit of hot water with his own Maha people because he suggested everyone wear a wristwatch that tracks your activity, and then his Maha people thought that sounded a lot too much like government oversight over your entire life. So now he's in a little bit of hot water with those people. Yeah, that's just running through all the candidates who are getting above 4%. If they're not getting above 4% or above, like Vivek Ramaswamy, he's running for governor of Ohio, Kerry Lake, Tim Scott, Kristi Noem, Ted Cruz. I don't see them as having high enough name ID. Greg Abbott, Tulsi Gabbard, Huckabee Sanders, again, same issue, not high enough name ID. It's possible, anything's possible in politics, but I think the most likely candidate as of now is J.D. Vance. How he will fare in a national election, we'll very much still wait and see, but I guess we'll just kind of wait to see what happens when it comes to who Trump endorses, because I think that will carry an incredible amount of weight that normal endorsements would not usually carry in modern politics, simply because of how he has a base of voters who will do pretty much anything he says. And I think if whoever he endorses, all of them will then go to whoever he endorses. And I have a feeling that most of the people supporting Trump Jr. are those people. So if he tells them to vote for someone else, Trump Jr. will most likely lose all of his support, because I think 90% of that is coming from the diehard MAGA crowd. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that analysis is pretty accurate. Definitely JD Vance is the most favorite out of all of them. I mean, he had like a massive lead against everyone. He had like 44-ish% of the polling when I don't think anyone else had more than 10%. Yeah, I mean, things could change in a lot of years, and if the Trump, I keep forgetting the word, goes seriously downhill, and then having that vice president tie might become a noose in a way. So
Right.
we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened with Kamala Harris. The vice presidency status is only worth something if the administration is viewed positively.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to the national races, when it comes to the primaries, then it carries a lot more weight.
I mean, I feel like Harris also didn't do enough to distance herself from the Biden administration. J.D. Vance if J.D. Vance would be competent, then I think he would try to do more than that. But I'm not sure if that would work out, because it would be throwing away a very difficult thing to attain, and I'm not sure if he could get anything better.
Right. Here's the thing about the distancing part. I think that in a Republican primary, he will want to be as close to Trump as is humanly possible, unless Trump has a 2% approval rating, which I don't think will ever happen. But, I think he will try to get as close to Trump as possible in that primary to win over many of the diehard MAGA crowd. When it comes to the general, though, that is not, depending upon how popular the administration is, if it's not very popular, then those endorsements might then be kind of a silver bullet against him. But we'll have to see. I mean, right now, the Trump administration's Trump's approval ratings are underwater right now. Right now, it's about a -13, so not great. Although it's it's been going down steadily since January. So, we'll have to see how everything goes. But yeah, I mean, if people do in fact find it as unpopular as the polls suggest, and the negative things that people already think about the stuff in the bill then it happen, then I think the Republican Party will become much more politically damaged when it comes to the 26 midterms. And then I think if there are more issues within the Trump presidency, I think then you will also see that endorsement in the general election then start to be less so of a saving grace, and then more so, as you described it, as kind of a noose, unfortunately for Vance, if that is the case. All right, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that covers everything.
All right, thanks for listening to Simplifying the State. We'll be back next week with our next episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Nicholas will be solo hosting for at least next week. I will be out of town, won't be able to record, but he will be here to solo host, so I can't wait to hear what you have in store. All right, see you next time.